The chopper blades thundered overhead as the squad descended into the clearing, the downdraft whipping up dust and dead leaves into a choking haze. Private Jenkins tightened his grip on his rifle, his knuckles white beneath the grime. The jungle pressed in on Firebase Ripcord from all sides, a wall of emerald and shadow that seemed to swallow sound whole. Sergeant Cole was the first out, boots hitting the dirt with a solid thud. He scanned the perimeter, his expression unreadable beneath the brim of his helmet. The firebase was a sorry sight, sandbags sagging, barbed wire rusted, and the command bunker little more than a dugout with a tin roof. The air smelled of damp earth and something sour underneath, like rot just beneath the surface. "Home sweet home," Corporal Reyes muttered, slinging his pack over one shoulder. His usual smirk was strained at the edges. Private Henson spat into the dirt. "Place looks like hell warmed over." Jenkins didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the tree line, where the undergrowth rustled despite the absence of wind. He could have sworn something had moved something low to the ground, too fast to be human. "Listen up," Cole barked, snapping them to attention. "Command wants us out in 48 hours. Evac's coming, but until then, keep your heads on straight. Last unit reported movement in the brush, could be VC, could be nothing. Either way, we don't take chances." Jenkins swallowed hard. "Sarge, you hear anything about other things out there?" Cole's gaze flicked to him sharp. "What things?" Just Jenkins hesitated. "Some of the guys back at base were talking. Said the last squad here swore they saw. I dunno, figures, not VC." Reyes snorted. "Figures? Like ghosts?" "Cut the crap," Cole said, but there was no real heat in it. "Stick to the mission. Eyes open, radio checks every hour. And Jenkins?" "Yeah, Sarge. Don't go spooking yourself over campfire stories." But as the squad dispersed to set up watch rotations, Jenkins couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The jungle was too quiet. No birds, no insects, just the oppressive weight of the humidity and the occasional creak of branches. That night, as he took first watch, he saw them. Red eyes low in the brush, glowing faintly like embers in the dark. They blinked. Then they were gone. Private Jenkins adjusted the strap of his helmet, the weight of it pressing uncomfortably against his temples. The jungle at night was a different beast, thick with shadows that moved when they shouldn't, sounds that didn't belong. The air clung to his skin, damp and heavy, carrying the faint scent of decay. From his post at the perimeter, the firebase looked skeletal in the moonlight, rusted wire, sagging sandbags, the command bunker a dark smudge against the trees. The others were asleep, save for Corporal Reyes, who was supposed to be on watch with him, but had already dozed off against an ammo crate, his rifle slack in his lap. Jenkins didn't wake him. The jungle was silent. That was the first thing that set his nerves on edge. No insects, no birds, not even the distant rustle of monkeys in the canopy. Just the occasional creak of branches, like something shifting its weight. Then he saw a flicker of red deep in the trees. Jenkins stiffened, his fingers tightening around his rifle. He blinked, willing his eyes to adjust. Maybe it was fatigue. Maybe it was the way the moonlight caught the leaves. But it came again, 2 pinpricks of crimson, low to the ground, watching, and his breath hitched. He nudged Reyes with his boot. "Hey Reyes, wake up." The corporal grunted, rubbing his face. "What? You see Charlie?" "No. Something else." Jenkins pointed, but the glow was gone. Reyes squinted into the dark. "Man, you're jumpy." "Probably just fireflies." "Fireflies aren't red." "Then it's VC with flashlights. screwing with us. Reyes yawned, stretching. Relax. Nothing out there but trees and bad luck. Jenkins exhaled, forcing his shoulders to loosen. Maybe Reyes was right. Maybe it was nothing. Then the rustling started. Not the wind, something moving deliberately through the underbrush. Slow. Purposeful. A low, guttural growl rolled through the night, so deep Jenkins felt it in his ribs. Reyes went still. You hear that? Jenkins didn't answer. His pulse hammered in his throat. The growl came again, closer this time, followed by the unmistakable sound of something dragging itself through the dirt. His flashlight beam cut through the dark, shaking in his grip. The jungle swallowed the light whole, revealing nothing but tangled vines and shadows. Then movement. A shape hunched in too fast, darting behind a tree. Jenkins' finger hovered over the trigger. We need to wake the others. Reyes hesitated, then nodded. But before either could move, the radio crackled to life, a burst of static, then a voice, distorted and broken. Firebase Ripcord. Do you copy? Over. Jenkins snatched it up. This is Ripcord. We read you. Say again. Again. The static swallowed the response. Then, faintly, beneath the noise, laughter. Not human. One. The growl came again, right at the tree line. Reyes' face drained of color. What the hell is that? Jenkins didn't know, but the red eyes were back. And this time, they weren't alone. Dawn crept over Firebase Ripcord like a slow fever, the jungle exhaling mist that clung to the men's fatigues. Sergeant Cole was the first to notice the rations were gone. The supply crate, left secured the night before, now sat pried open, its lid splintered as if by something far stronger than human hands. Inside, the Mares were gone, not just taken, but emptied, the plastic wrappers shredded into confetti. Cole crouched beside the crate, running a finger along the deep gouges in the wood. Claw marks, thick as a man's thumb. Well, Corporal Reyes said, rocking back on his heels, guess we're skipping breakfast. No one laughed. They. Private Henson kicked the crate, his jaw tight. VC wouldn't leave tracks like that. And they sure as hell wouldn't waste the food. Jenkins didn't speak. His eyes tracked the ground. The mud was soft from last night's rain, and the prints were unmistakable. Too large for a tiger, too deep for anything that should move so quietly. And between them, long, dragging grooves, like something had been pulled. Cole straightened. Tracks lead east, into the jungle. A beat of silence. Then Reyes forced a grin. Jungle ghost got the munchies, huh? The men didn't meet his eyes. The lieutenant emerged from the command bunker, his uniform crisp despite the humidity. He took in the scene with a flick of his cigarette. Lose something. Sergeant? Cole kept his voice flat. Rations, sir. Something took them. Something. The lieutenant's smile didn't reach his eyes. You letting ghost stories spook you now? Jenkins spoke before he could stop himself. Sir, the tracks are irrelevant. The lieutenant exhaled smoke. VC's been scavenging supplies all over the AO. Probably had a monkey do their dirty work. He turned to Cole. Get your men in line. We've got evac in 24 hours. I don't need them jumping at shadows. Cole's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Yes, sir. As the lieutenant strode away, Reyes muttered, monkeys. Right. Henson spat. Man's got his head so far up command's ass he can't see daylight. Cole ignored them. He crouched again, tracing the claw marks. Jenkins, you saw something last night. It wasn't a question. Jenkins swallowed, red eyes. In the trees. Reyes stiffened. You didn't say they were red. I did. No, you said. Reyes cut himself off, shaking his head. Never mind. Den. Cole stood. We're checking the perimeter. Mire. Full sweep. Henson, take point. Henson hesitated. Sarge, if there's something out there. Then we find it before it finds us. Cole slung his rifle. Move. The jungle swallowed them whole. The trees pressed close, their roots snaking underfoot like buried veins. The air was thick with the smell of wet earth and something older, something that turned Jenkins' stomach. The tracks led deeper, the claw marks scoring the bark of every third tree markers or warnings. Then the radio crackled. Static first. Then a voice not the lieutenant's, not anyone's. Guttural, wet, like words forced through a throat not meant for speech. Close now. Henson froze. What the fuck was that? Cole grabbed the radio. This is Firebase Ripcord. Identify. The response was laughter, low, hungry. And from the trees ahead, something laughed back. Reyes' hand shook on his rifle. We should go. Cole didn't argue. They ran. Behind them, the jungle watched. Chapter 4. Patrol into the green. The jungle had teeth. That was the thought that lodged in Private Henson's mind as he hacked through the undergrowth, sweat rolling down his temples. The patrol sergeant Cole, Jenkins, Reyes, and himself had barely gone a click from Firebase Ripcord, and already the jungle had closed in around them like a living thing. The air was thick enough to chew, buzzing with unseen insects and the weight of something watching. Hold up, Cole muttered, raising a fist. The squad froze. Ahead, the trail of claw marks they'd been following vanished into a wall of ferns. The ground was soft, the mud holding impressions too large to be human. Henson crouched, tracing the edges of one with his finger. 5 toes. Too long. Too wrong. Tiger? Reyes whispered, though his voice lacked conviction. Cole shook his head. Tigers don't leave marks like this. Oh my. He glanced at Jenkins. You still seeing those eyes? Jenkins didn't answer. His gaze was fixed on the trees, his knuckles white around his rifle. Henson exhaled sharply. We should turn back. Command didn't order us this deep. Command doesn't know shit, Cole said. He adjusted his grip on his weapon. We keep moving. Stay sharp. They pushed forward. The jungle grew denser, vines snaking around their ankles, branches whispering against their shoulders like probing fingers. The silence was oppressive. No birds, no monkeys, just the occasional rustle of leaves that made Henson's trigger finger twitch. Then the smell hit them. Reyes gagged. Christ, what is that? Rot. Thick and sweet, clinging to the back of Henson's throat. The stench led them to a clearing where the earth had been torn up, roots exposed like broken bones. At the center, a pile of shredded fabric camouflage, military issue. Blood darkened the dirt beneath it, but there was no body. Jenkins' voice was hollow. That's ours. Cole knelt, sifting through the fabric. A name patch, half buried in the muck. PVT. R. Ellis. The last squad's missing man. Henson's stomach turned. VC wouldn't leave gear behind. No, Cole agreed. His hand hovered over the claw marks raked into the tree beside them. They wouldn't. Tay. A branch snapped. The squad spun, rifles up. The jungle had gone utterly still. No wind. No sound. Just the weight of eyes on them. Henson's breath caught. There, between the trees, a shadow. Tall, too tall. Its limbs bent at angles that made his brain itch, its outline wavering like heat haze. And then the eyes. Red. Glowing. Watching. Contact. Henson hissed, but the thing was already gone, melting into the green like smoke. Reyes' laugh was too high. You seen shit now too, Henson? Shut up, Cole snapped. His face was grim. We're leaving. Now. They moved fast, backs pressed together, scanning the trees. The jungle felt heavier now, the air thick with something worse than humidity. Then the radio crackled. Static first. Then a voice not human, not right, garbled and wet. You can't hide. Jenkins' hands shook. That's not the lieutenant. Cole ripped the radio from his belt. Fall back. Double time. They ran. Branches lashed at them. Roots grabbed at their boots. Behind them, something moved, not chasing, just keeping pace, rustling just out of sight. Henson risked a glance back. The red eyes blinked at him from the dark. Then, the jungle swallowed them whole. Chapter 5. Debriefing doubts. The patrol burst back into Firebase Ripcord like men fleeing a wildfire. Sweat streaked their faces, their breath ragged, rifles clutched tight against their chests. The lieutenant stood outside the command bunker, cigarette dangling from his lips, watching them with a smirk that didn't reach his cold eyes. Sergeant Cole didn't wait for permission. He strode forward, his voice low but sharp. We need to talk. Now. The lieutenant exhaled smoke. Report, Sergeant. Cole's jaw tightened. We found Ellis gear, torn to shreds. No body. And we saw something out there, something that wasn't VC. The lieutenant flicked ash. You sure it wasn't just shadows? Jungle plays tricks. Shadows don't leave claw marks, Henson cut in, his voice rough. Or laugh over the radio. That got a reaction. The lieutenant's smirk faltered for half a second before he schooled his expression back into smug indifference. Radio interference. Happens all the time. Jenkins stepped forward, his hands still shaking. Sir, with respect, we saw it. Red eyes, moving too fast. It wasn't human. The lieutenant's gaze flicked to Cole. You letting your men spin ghost stories now? Cole didn't blink. They're not prone to hallucinations. A beat of silence. The firebase hummed around them, the distant chatter of the radio, the creak of the wire fence, the oppressive weight of the jungle pressing in. Finally, the lieutenant sighed. Look, I get it, you're tired. The jungle's got you jumping at every damn rustle. Well, but we've got evac in 12 hours. You really want to tell command you're spooked by campfire tales? Reyes let out a strained chuckle. Yeah, sure, just our imaginations. But his fingers tapped nervously against his rifle. The lieutenant clapped Cole on the shoulder, his grip too tight. Get your men some rest. And Cole. His voice dropped, just for the sergeant's ears. Drop this. For their sake. He walked away, leaving the squad standing in the dirt, the unspoken threat hanging in the air. Henson spat. He knows something. Cole watched the lieutenant disappear into the bunker. Maybe. But we're not getting answers from him. Jenkins rubbed his arms, though the heat was stifling. Then, what do we do? Cole's voice was quiet. We stay sharp, stick together. And when that bird comes, we get the hell out of here. Reyes glanced at the tree line, his usual bravado gone. You think it'll let us? No one answered. The jungle watched. Silent. Waiting. The jungle exhaled as the sun dipped below the canopy, the air thickening with the scent of damp earth and something sour beneath like meat left too long in the heat. Private Jenkins adjusted his grip on his rifle, the sweat-slick wood pressing into his palms. Second watch in as many nights. Second night of those eyes. Firebase Ripcord was a graveyard of shadows, the perimeter wire sagging under its own rust. Behind him, Reyes snored against a sandbag, his helmet tilted over his face. The lieutenant had ordered double watches after the patrol, but no one had the energy to enforce it. Jenkins scanned the tree line. Nothing. Then, a whisper of movement. Not wind. Not an animal. Something purposeful, sliding between the trunks. His pulse spiked. The jungle had gone eerily silent, no insects, no frogs, just the oppressive weight of being watched. He nudged Reyes with his boot. Wake up. Reyes groaned, swatting at him without opening his eyes. 5 more minutes, Mom. Reyes. Jenkins' voice cracked. They're back. That got his attention. Reyes jerked upright, rifle swinging wildly. Where? Where? Jenkins pointed. Mia. Just beyond the wire, barely 10 yards out, 2 pinpricks of crimson light hovered in the dark, low to the ground. Unblinking. Reyes sucked in a breath. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. The eyes didn't move. Just watched. Jenkins' finger hovered over his trigger. We should wake Cole. And say what? Hey, Sarge, the demon fireflies are back. Reyes wiped his mouth with a shaky hand. Light it up. Scare it off. Jenkins hesitated. Then he flicked on his flashlight. The beam cut through the dark, and the eyes dodged, sliding sideways faster than anything should move. A low, wet growl rippled through the night, vibrating in Jenkins' ribs. Reyes cursed, scrambling back. What the fuck? The radio on Jenkins' belt crackled to life. Static. Then, a voice garbled, wrong syllables stretching like taffy. So close now. The eyes surged forward. Jenkins fired. The muzzle flash lit the jungle for half a second, just long enough to see the thing behind the eyes. Tall. Gaunt. Limbs too long, joints bending in ways that made his stomach lurch. Then it was gone, the darkness swallowing it whole. Reyes was already on his feet, shouting into the radio. Contact, perimeter east. Repeat, contact. Boots pounded the dirt as Cole and Henson sprinted from the bunker, rifles raised. Report. Cole barked. Jenkins couldn't speak. His hands shook so badly he dropped the flashlight. The beam rolled, illuminating the perimeter wire and the deep, fresh claw marks raked into the dirt inside the fence. Henson's face went pale. It was in here. Cole's jaw tightened. He grabbed the radio from Reyes. Lieutenant, we need backup now. The response was immediate. The lieutenant's voice sharp with something Jenkins had never heard before. Fear. Fall back to the bunker. Now that's an order. Behind them, the jungle rustled. Not just one set of eyes now. Dozens. Glowing, hungry. Jenkins didn't wait for orders. He bolted for the bunker, his boots kicking up clods of dirt as the others followed close behind. The radio in Cole's hand spat static, the lieutenant's voice cutting in and out. Move. Now. But Jenkins barely heard it over the blood roaring in his ears. The bunker door loomed ahead, a sliver of lamplight spilling from the crack beneath it. Something moved in the periphery of his vision, a flicker of red, low and fast, darting between the supply crates. He didn't look. Didn't stop. Henson reached the door first, slamming his shoulder into it hard enough to rattle the hinges. The lieutenant stood inside, his face pale under the flickering bulb, a pistol clutched in his white-knuckled grip. Get in, he barked. They piled inside, Cole slamming the door shut behind them. The bunker was cramped, the air thick with sweat and gun oil. Jenkins pressed his back against the wall, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Reyes wiped his mouth. What the hell was that? The lieutenant didn't answer. His eyes flicked to Cole. You saw it? Ah. Cole's voice was steel. We saw something. A beat of silence. Outside, the jungle was unnaturally still. No growls, no rustling, just the oppressive weight of being watched. Then, the radio crackled. Static first. Then the voice guttural, wet, wrong, speaking in a whisper that filled the tiny room. We see you. Henson's hand twitched toward his rifle. That's not VC. The lieutenant's jaw tightened. He reached into his pack and tossed a worn journal onto the table. The cover was stained, the pages brittle with age. Read it. Meet it. Cole flipped it open. The handwriting was frantic, the ink smeared in places as if written in haste or terror. They're not VC. They're not even animals. They watch. They wait. And when you're alone, they. The last line was torn away. Jenkins' stomach turned. Whose is this? The lieutenant lit another cigarette, his hands steady but his eyes hollow. Last squad. Ellis kept it. Found it in his gear after he trailed off, exhaling smoke. Command called it stress. Said the jungle plays tricks. But you've seen it now. You know. Cole's voice was low. Know what? The lieutenant met his gaze. Project Stalker wasn't just about the VC. A chill crawled down Jenkins' spine. Outside, something scraped against the bunker wall long, slow, like claws testing the wood. Reyes swallowed hard. So what do we do? The lieutenant stubbed out his cigarette. We wait for evac. And we pray it comes before they decide we're not worth playing with anymore. The radio hissed. So close now. Meh. Jenkins closed his eyes. The jungle held its breath. The bunker's single bulb flickered, casting jagged shadows across the men's faces. Jenkins pressed his ear to the door, straining to hear anything beyond the hammering of his own pulse. The jungle outside had gone deathly silent, no insects, no wind, just the oppressive weight of something waiting. Then the first shot rang out. Jenkins flinched as gunfire erupted from the perimeter, short, controlled bursts, then panicked full auto. A scream tore through the night, cut off abruptly. Cole was already moving, rifle in hand. That's the West Watch. The lieutenant grabbed his arm. You stay put, that's an order. Dan. Cole shook him off. That's our men out there. Another scream. Closer this time. The gunfire stuttered, then stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Henson's hands clenched around his rifle. They're picking us off one by one. The radio crackled to life, static. Then, a wet, choking gasp. Eyes, oh God. Their eyes, the transmission ended with a crunch, like bones breaking. Reyes let out a shaky breath. We can't just sit here. The lieutenant's face was ashen. We don't know what we're dealing with. Bullshit, Cole snapped. He turned to Jenkins. On me. We're checking the perimeter. The lieutenant didn't stop them. The moment Jenkins stepped outside, the humidity hit him like a fist. The firebase was a nightmare of shifting shadows, the perimeter wire trembling as if something had just brushed past it. To the west, a lone figure lay sprawled in the dirt. Private Kowalski, his rifle still clutched in lifeless fingers. His body was untouched, but his face was frozen in pure terror, his eyes wide and unseeing. No blood. No wounds, just claw marks raked deep into the sandbags beside him. Jenkins' breath fogged in the air. Despite the heat, "Sarge, what does this?" Cole didn't answer. His flashlight beam swept the tree line, catching flickers of movement too fast, too low. The rustling grew louder, branches snapping under an unseen weight. Then the wire fence twanged. Something hit it hard, not from the jungle side, but from inside the firebase. Jenkins spun, his rifle coming up just in time to see a shadow detach itself from behind the supply crates. Tall, gaunt, limbs too long, joints bending at impossible angles, and the eyes glowing red. Hungry. Jenkins fired. The thing moved, darting sideways faster than his eyes could track. The bullets tore through empty air, the muzzle flash illuminating the sandbags and the deep, fresh claw marks scoring the dirt where it had stood. "Fall back," Cole barked, dragging Jenkins toward the bunker. Behind them, the fence shuddered again. Then again. More shapes emerged from the dark, some crouched low, others towering, all with those same burning eyes. They didn't charge, didn't attack, just watched, laughed. The sound wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It was something worse, something that slithered into Jenkins' skull and nested there. Henson and Reyes were already at the bunker door, their rifles trained on the shadows. "Move," Henson shouted. Jenkins ran. The eyes followed, tracking his every step. He could feel them hunger, not for flesh, but for fear. The bunker door slammed shut behind them. The lieutenant stood frozen, his pistol dangling at his side. Cole grabbed him by the collar. "You knew." The lieutenant's voice was hollow. "I knew they were out there. Not like this." Outside, the fence groaned under the weight of something climbing. The radio hissed, the same guttural voice whispering through the static. "You can't hide forever." Jenkins closed his eyes. The first scratch came at the door. Slow, deliberate. Static hissed from the radio, like a living thing. Sergeant Cole adjusted the frequency again, his fingers tight on the dial. The bunker's dim light flickered overhead, painting shadows that jumped with every sputter of the bulb. Outside, the jungle pressed in, its silence more unnerving than any sound. "Command, this is Firebase Ripcord. Do you copy? Over." "Eat gas." Nothing. Just the endless white noise. Private Jenkins leaned against the wall, his arms crossed. His skin felt too tight, his nerves frayed raw. "They're not answering." Corporal Reyes let out a humorless chuckle. "Maybe the jungle ate them too." Henson shot him a glare. Not helping. Cole ignored them. He smacked the side of the radio, as if that could jolt it into cooperation. "Command, come in. We have a situation. Immediate evac requested." Over. More static. Then, faintly, a voice. Jenkins straightened. "You hear that?" Cole held up a hand. The voice crackled through, broken and distant. "Fire. Signal weak. Hold position." Then it was gone, swallowed by the noise. Henson exhaled sharply. "That's it?" "Hold position, they don't get it." "Maybe they can't hear us," Cole muttered. He adjusted the antenna, though he knew it wouldn't help. The radio had worked fine yesterday. Now it was as if something was blocking them. The lieutenant hadn't moved from his spot in the corner. His cigarette had burned down to the filter, the ash clinging precariously. "It's not the jungle," he said quietly. Jenkins turned. "Then what is it?" The lieutenant didn't answer. His eyes flicked to the journal on the table, the one with the torn page. Reyes groaned. "Oh, come on. You think ghosts are jamming our signal?" Not ghosts, the lieutenant said. His voice was too calm, too measured, something else. A chill crawled down Jenkins' spine. He thought of the eyes in the dark, the way they'd watched, the way they'd laughed. Cole slammed the radio down. Then we're on our own. Outside, something scraped against the bunker wall, a slow, deliberate drag of claws. The men froze. Henson's grip tightened on his rifle. They're still out there. Mayor. Of course they are, Reyes muttered. Just waiting for us to get bored and step outside for a smoke. Jenkins swallowed. What if they're waiting for nightfall? Blighty, Naamansian. No one answered. No one answered. The radio crackled again. This time, no voice, just a low, wet sound like something breathing. Then, a whisper, so faint Jenkins almost thought he imagined it. We hear you. Nua. Cole yanked the cord from the wall. The sudden silence was worse. The lieutenant finally moved, stubbing out his cigarette. Evac's coming at dawn. Until then, we stay put. No one goes outside. Jenkins glanced at the boarded-up windows. And if they get in? The lieutenant's smile didn't reach his eyes. Then we make sure they regret it. The jungle held its breath. The radio, unplugged, hissed softly in the dark. The bunker smelled of sweat, gun oil, and the lieutenant's endless cigarettes. Private Henson crouched in the corner, his fingers tracing the frayed edges of the journal he'd found stuffed under a cot. The cover was damp, the pages yellowed with age, and something darker stains that might have been mud or blood. Sergeant Cole glanced over from the radio. What have you got? Henson flipped it open. The handwriting was jagged, the ink smeared in places as if written in haste. Belonged to someone from the last unit. Ellis, maybe. Jenkins leaned in, his breath warm on Henson's neck. What's it say? Henson skimmed the first entry. Command says it's just VC, but VC don't move like that. Saw something in the trees last night, too tall, with eyes like hot coals. Kowalski swears it was a tiger. Bullshit. Tigers don't laugh. A chill prickled Henson's skin. He turned the page. Rations went missing again. Not stolen, ripped apart. Down tracks near the wire. 5 toes. But the claws, Christ, the claws were longer than my fingers. Lieutenant says it's monkeys. I'm not that stupid. Reyes let out a low whistle. Sounds familiar. Henson kept reading. The entries grew more frantic, the handwriting slanting wildly. They're watching us. Not just at night, daylight too. You'll catch a flicker in the brush, a shadow where there shouldn't be. The others are jumpy. Kowalski won't sleep, says they whisper to him. I think he's right. Jenkins' voice was barely audible. They got to him first. Henson's throat tightened. He flipped to the last intact page. They're not just outside the wire anymore. Found claw marks inside the bunker this morning. Lieutenant won't report it. Says command will call us crazy. But I saw his face. He knows. Whatever they are, they're not. The rest was torn away. Henson ran his thumb over the ragged edge. Someone didn't want this read. Cole's jaw clenched. He reached for the journal, but the lieutenant's voice cut through the dim light. Put that down. Down. They turned. The lieutenant stood in the doorway, his face half shadowed. His cigarette trembled slightly between his fingers. Henson didn't move. Sir, this proves it's not just us. The last squad saw them too. The lieutenant stepped forward, snatching the journal. It proves nothing. Stress, paranoia, it happens. Cole's voice was steel. Then why tear the page? For a second, the lieutenant's mask slipped a flicker of fear in his eyes. Then it was gone. He tossed the journal onto the table. Evacs at dawn. Until then, focus on staying alive, not chasing ghosts. He walked out, leaving silence in his wake. Reyes picked up the journal, flipping to the torn page. Wonder what was here. Jenkins stared at the door. Something he didn't want us to know. Outside, the jungle rustled. Something scratched at the bunker wall. Once. Twice. Then nothing. The lieutenant's boots crunched on the damp earth as he strode into the bunker, his uniform crisp despite the jungle's oppressive humidity. His cigarette dangled from his lips, the smoke curling around his face like a shroud. The squad stiffened Cole at attention, Jenkins and Reyes exchanging glances, Henson's fingers twitching near his rifle. At ease, the lieutenant said, though his tone carried no warmth. He exhaled smoke, eyeing the journal still open on the table. Still spinning ghost stories, Sergeant? Cole's jaw tightened. Sir, we have reason to believe. Believe what? The lieutenant's laugh was sharp, hollow. That the jungle's full of monsters? Jesus, Cole, I expected better from you. Jenkins stepped forward before he could stop himself. Sir, we saw them. Red eyes, claw marks, the radio. The radio's junk, the lieutenant snapped, and claw marks mean tigers, not demons. He tapped Ash onto the floor. Evacs in 6 hours. Command wants this firebase cleared, not a bunch of jumpy grunts seeing VC in every shadow. Reyes forced a grin, though it didn't reach his eyes. Guess we'll just ignore the laughing shadows then. The lieutenant's gaze flicked to him cold. You do that, Corporal. A beat of silence. The bunker's single bulb flickered, casting jagged shadows. Outside, the jungle was unnaturally still. No insects, no wind, just the weight of eyes watching. Henson crossed his arms. Sir, what's Project Stalker? The lieutenant froze. For a fraction of a second, his mask slipped a flicker of fear, quickly smothered. Where'd you hear that? Cole didn't blink. The journal. The lieutenant stubbed out his cigarette with deliberate slowness. Classified intel. Above your pay grade. Jenkins' pulse hammered. Sir, if there's something out there, something known, we deserve to know what we're up against. The lieutenant's smile was thin. You're up against fatigue and an overactive imagination. Now, pack your gear. Wheels up at dawn. He turned to leave, then paused at the door. And Cole, burn that damn journal. The moment the door shut, Reyes let out a shaky breath. Man's hiding something. Henson picked up the journal, thumbing the torn page. Worse. He's scared. Cole stared at the door, his voice low. Scared men make mistakes. Outside, something scraped against the bunker wall, long, slow, like claws testing the wood. The radio, silent since Cole unplugged it, crackled to life. Static. Then a whisper, guttural and wet. He lies. Men. Jenkins' blood turned to ice. The jungle held its breath, waiting. The sun hung low over Firebase Ripcord, casting long, twisted shadows across the clearing. Private Jenkins wiped sweat from his brow, his fingers leaving streaks of grime. The jungle had been quiet all morning, too quiet. No birds, no insects, just the oppressive weight of the humidity pressing down like a hand. Corporal Reyes leaned against a sandbag, squinting into the trees. You seeing this? Jenkins followed his gaze. At first, nothing. Then movement. A flicker between the trunks, too fast to be human. His pulse stuttered. Sergeant Cole was already moving, rifle raised. Henson, eyes east. Henson swung his weapon toward the tree line. What the hell is that? It emerged from the green like smoke given form tall. Too tall, its limbs elongated and jointed wrong. The sunlight didn't touch it right, sliding off its edges as if repelled. And the eyes. The eyes. Glowing. Red, Jenkins' breath caught. It's back. The thing moved without sound, gliding between the trees like a nightmare given flesh. 1 second it was there. The next it was 10 yards to the left, its movements disjointed, impossible. Reyes' rifle trembled in his grip. Why isn't it blinking? The lieutenant's voice cut through the tension. What's the commotion, Sergeant? Cole didn't lower his weapon. Contact, sir. East tree line. Now. The lieutenant strode forward, his cigarette trailing smoke. He squinted into the jungle, then scoffed. Christ, Cole. It's a shadow. Jenkins' stomach twisted. Sir, we all see it. And I see a bunch of men losing their nerve over jungle mist. The lieutenant exhaled sharply. Stand down. That's an order. Me. The thing chose that moment to step fully into view. It wasn't mist. Taller than a man, its torso too narrow, its arms ending in claws that scraped the earth. The red eyes burned like embers in a skeletal face that wasn't quite a face, just a suggestion of one, shifting like oil on water. Henson's voice cracked. Lieutenant. For a heartbeat. The lieutenant froze. Jenkins saw it, the flicker of recognition, the tightening of his jaw. Then it was gone, buried under a sneer. Hallucinations. Heat exhaustion. He turned his back on the thing. Get your men under control, Sergeant. The creature tilted its head as if amused. Then it moved, not walking, but sliding, its form blurring between the trees until it vanished into the green. Reyes let out a shaky breath. Did that just? Quiet. Cole snapped. His eyes never left the jungle. Jenkins' hands wouldn't stop shaking. The lieutenant knew. He knew. And he was lying. The radio on Cole's belt crackled to life, static first. Then a voice garbled, wet, wrong. He sees us too. The lieutenant's cigarette fell from his lips. The jungle exhaled. And from the trees, a dozen red eyes blinked open. Watching. Waiting. Hungry. The jungle had swallowed Private Henson whole. One moment he'd been checking the perimeter wire, his flashlight beam cutting through the pre-dawn gloom. The next gone. No scream, no gunfire, just the rustle of leaves and the oppressive silence that followed. Sergeant Cole found his gear 10 yards from the wire. The flashlight lay shattered, its glass scattered like teeth. The rifle was worse, the stock splintered, the barrel bent at an unnatural angle, as if wrenched by something with impossible strength. Deep grooves scored the earth around it. Claw marks raked into the mud. No blood. Jenkins' hands shook as he crouched beside the tracks. These aren't VC. Cole didn't answer. His jaw was clenched tight enough to crack teeth. Reyes paced behind them, his rifle sweeping the trees. Henson wouldn't just wander off. Not after last night. The jungle offered no answers. The mist clung to the ground like a shroud, muffling sound, swallowing light. Jenkins' skin prickled. The feeling of being watched was back, worse than ever. Cole straightened, his voice low. Fan out, 20-yard spread. Call if you see anything. They moved in silence, boots sinking into the damp earth. The trees press close, their branches snagging at uniforms like skeletal fingers. Jenkins' breath came in short, sharp bursts. Every shadow seemed to shift when he wasn't looking. Then Reyes hissed. "Over here." The claw marks led to a shallow depression in the earth, a hollow between the roots of a massive kapok tree. The ground was disturbed, the leaves and mulch scraped away to reveal something pale beneath. Jenkins' stomach turned. "Is that?" Cole knelt, brushing aside the dirt. Not bone. Fabric. A sleeve. Camouflage pattern. Henson's shirt. Empty. Reyes backed away, his face ashen. Where the hell is the rest of him? The radio on Cole's belt crackled. Static first. Then a voice, Henson's voice, garbled and wet, as if forced through a throat full of mud. "They're everywhere. Dare." Jenkins' blood turned to ice. The transmission cut off with a sound like tearing meat. Cole was already moving, rifle up. Fall back to the firebase. Now. Now. They ran. The jungle seemed to resist them, vines snagging their ankles, branches whipping at their faces. Behind them, something moved, not chasing, just keeping pace, rustling just out of sight. Jenkins risked a glance back. The hollow where they'd found the shirt was empty. But the claw marks leading away from it were fresh, and they were headed toward the firebase. Reyes' voice was strangled. "They're hurting us." Cole didn't slow down. "Keep moving." The wire fence came into view, sagging and rusted. The firebase beyond was eerily still, no sentries, no movement, just the command bunker squatting in the mist. The lieutenant stood outside it, his cigarette burning unattended between his fingers. His face was pale, his eyes hollow. Cole skidded to a halt. "Henson's gone." The lieutenant didn't react. He just stared past them into the jungle. Jenkins turned. At the tree line, barely visible through the mist, stood a figure. Tall, gaunt, limbs too long, and wearing Henson's dog tags around its neck. The lieutenant's cigarette hit the dirt. The thing smiled, or seemed to, its face shifting unnaturally before melting back into the green. The radio in Cole's hand crackled one last time. Henson's voice, now a whisper. "They're inside the wire." Then silence. The jungle held its breath. The squad stood frozen. Somewhere in the trees, something laughed. The bunker door slammed shut behind them, sealing out the jungle's oppressive silence. The single bulb flickered overhead, casting jagged shadows across the lieutenant's face as he slumped into a chair, his hands trembling around a fresh cigarette. Sergeant Cole didn't wait for permission. He stepped forward, his voice low and dangerous. "You knew." "Knew." The lieutenant exhaled smoke, his eyes hollow. "Knew what?" "Meh. Don't bullshit me." Cole slammed a palm on the table, making the journal jump. "Henson's gone." The radio's spouting voices. "Those things are out there and you've seen them before." A beat of silence. The bunker's walls seemed to press closer, the air thick with sweat and gun oil. Then the lieutenant sighed. He reached into his pack and tossed a crumpled file onto the table. The cover was stamped with a single word in red ink: classified. Jenkins leaned in, his pulse hammering. "What's this?" Reports," the lieutenant muttered. "From other units, same shit, missing men. Claw marks, red eyes, command calls it mass hysteria. Stress, enemy psyops." He tapped the file. "But it's happening too often. Too consistently." Reyes let out a shaky laugh. "So what? We're all just hallucinating the same monsters." The lieutenant's smile was brittle. I didn't say that. Cole flipped open the file. The pages were dense with typed reports, some paragraphs blacked out entirely. A few phrases stood out. Entity displays unnatural speed. No remains recovered, only personal effects. Radio interference precedes encounters. And at the bottom of one page, stamped in bold, Project Stalker, eyes only. Jenkins' throat tightened. What's Project Stalker? The lieutenant's cigarette burned down to the filter, the ash crumbling. Something they don't tell grunts like us. He met Cole's gaze. But I've heard whispers. In me, experiments. Things they pulled out of the jungle and couldn't put back. Outside, the wire fence creaked a slow, deliberate strain, like something testing its strength. Rhea's knuckles whitened around his rifle. You're saying the army did this? I'm saying they know. The lieutenant snapped. And they'd rather write us off as crazy than admit it. A burst of static hissed from the radio. Then a voice, not Henson's this time, but something older, guttural. You belong to the green now. The lieutenant flinched. For the first time, Jenkins saw real fear in his eyes. Cole shut the file. Evacs in 3 hours. We hold until then. And if they don't come? Jenkins whispered. No one answered. The radio crackled again, the voice slipping through the static like a knife. We'll be waiting. Tier. The bulb overhead flickered. In the sudden darkness, something scratched at the bunker door. Once. Twice. Then silence. Then, the jungle held its breath. The men didn't. The order crackled through the radio like a death knell. Firebase Ripcord, this is command. Evac inbound at 0630. Abandon post and proceed to LZ immediately. Acknowledge. Over. Static hissed in the silence that followed. Sergeant Cole gripped the receiver, his knuckles white. The bunker smelled of sweat and gunpowder, the air thick with the unspoken truth they weren't just leaving Firebase Ripcord. They were fleeing it. Jenkins exhaled sharply, his fingers twitching toward his pack. They're really pulling us out. Reyes barked a laugh, though his eyes darted to the boarded-up windows. About damn time. The lieutenant stubbed out his cigarette, his face unreadable. Pack light. Weapons and ammo only. Move fast. Cole didn't move. And Henson? A beat of silence. The lieutenant's jaw tightened. We don't have time for a search. Jenkins flinched. Sir. He's gone. The lieutenant snapped, though his voice lacked its usual venom. You saw what's out there. You want to end up like him? No one answered. Outside, the jungle was unnaturally still. No birds, no wind, just the oppressive weight of being watched. The men moved quickly, stuffing rations into pockets, checking magazines with trembling hands. Jenkins' pack felt too light, his mind racing with the claw marks, the red eyes, the thing wearing Henson's dog tags. Reyes nudged him, holding out a canteen. Drink. You look like hell. Jenkins took it. The water warm and metallic. You think they'll let us leave? Reyes' grin didn't reach his eyes. Guess we'll find out. The lieutenant emerged from the command bunker, his uniform streaked with dirt, a pistol holstered at his hip. Chopper's 20 mics out. Stay tight, stay quiet. Anything moves in those trees, you light it up. Cole shouldered his rifle. And if it's not VC? The lieutenant's gaze flicked to the tree line. Then shoot faster. Then shoot faster. The squad moved out in silence, boots crunching on the cracked earth of the firebase. The perimeter wires sagged like a broken spine, the sandbags torn open in places, spilling their innards onto the dirt. Jenkins kept his rifle trained on the jungle, his finger hovering over the trigger. Every shadow seemed to shift when he wasn't looking. Then the radio crackled. Static first. Then the voice guttural, wet, wrong, speaking in a whisper that slithered down Jenkins' spine. "You can't leave us." Reyes swore, fumbling with his volume knob. "Turn that shit off." "Me." Cole ripped the radio from his belt and hurled it into the jungle. The moment it left his hand, the trees erupted with movement, branches shaking, leaves rustling, as if something unseen had caught it midair. The lieutenant's face went pale. "Move. Mettened. Now. Now." They ran. They ran. The jungle pressed in on all sides, vines snagging at their uniforms, roots twisting underfoot. The path to the LZ was a blur of green and shadow, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and something older, something hungry. Behind them, the firebase vanished into the mist, its broken wire and empty bunkers left to the things that watched. Jenkins' lungs burned. His boots slipped in the mud, but he didn't stop, couldn't stop. Because beneath the sound of his own ragged breathing, beneath the distant thrum of helicopter blades, he heard it. The laughter. May. Low. Hungry. And getting closer. The thump of rotor blades cut through the jungle's unnatural silence before the chopper appeared a dark silhouette against the bruise-colored dawn. The landing zone was a ragged clearing, the grass flattened by previous extractions, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and fuel. Jenkins' pulse hammered in his throat as they broke through the tree line. The Huey hovered just above the ground, its side door open, a crew chief waving them in, the promise of escape. Then the red eyes appeared. Dozens of them, glowing like embers in the pre-dawn gloom, lining the tree line in a silent semicircle. The creatures didn't advance, didn't snarl, just watched, their elongated limbs twitching in the shadows. Reyes froze. "Oh, you gotta be kidding me." The lieutenant spun, pistol raised. "Go, go, go." Gunfire erupted as the men laid down, suppressing fire, bullets chewing through foliage. The creatures didn't flinch, didn't bleed, just swayed slightly, as if amused. Jenkins' breath came in ragged gasps. "They're not attacking." Cole grabbed his arm, dragging him toward the chopper. "Doesn't matter. Move." The squad sprinted, boots pounding the mud. The crew chief's shouts were swallowed by the rotor wash as Jenkins lunged for the skid, hauling himself inside. Reyes tumbled in after him, followed by the lieutenant, his face a mask of sweat and terror. Cole was last. He turned, rifle raised not at the jungle, but at the lieutenant. "You knew they'd be here." The lieutenant's mouth opened, but the radio in the chopper crackled to life, drowning him out. "You'll bring them home." Home. The voice wasn't human. Jenkins' blood turned to ice. The creatures stepped forward in unison, their movements synchronized, unnatural. The chopper lurched upward, the ground falling away, but the red eyes never blinked, never wavered. Watching. Always watching. As the jungle swallowed Firebase Ripcord whole below them, Jenkins realized with dawning horror. They weren't fleeing the creatures. They were taking them home. The radio hissed one last time before cutting to static. The crew chief frowned. What the hell was that? Cole stared at the shrinking tree line, his face grim. No one answered. The jungle blurred beneath them as the Huey clawed for altitude, the rotors thundering against the oppressive dawn. Jenkins clutched the edge of the cabin, his knuckles white, the wind whipping tears from his eyes. Below, Firebase Ripcord shrank into the green broken wire, empty bunkers, and the things that watched from the trees. Reyes slumped against the bulkhead, his laughter too loud, too sharp. We made it. Holy shit, we actually. A bullet punched through the cabin floor. Jenkins flinched as the crew chief bellowed, "Incoming, VC in the trees." The squad scrambled, rifles swinging toward the ground. Muzzle flashes winked from the canopy like fireflies. The Huey banked hard, the jungle spinning beneath them. Jenkins caught a glimpse of movement, not just VC, but something else, darting between the trunks with impossible speed. Then he saw them. Red eyes, glowing, tracking the chopper's ascent. Cole grabbed his shoulder, shouting over the rotor wash, "Don't look down." But Jenkins couldn't tear his gaze away. The creatures weren't shooting, just watching, their elongated limbs braced against the trees as if ready to leap. The VC gunfire intensified, rounds pinging off the skids, but the creatures didn't react, didn't scatter. Unnatural. Unreal. The lieutenant crouched by the door, his pistol useless in his grip. His lips moved, but the words were lost in the chaos. Jenkins saw them anyway. "They're letting us go. Now." The radio crackled. The pilot's voice cut through the static, taking fire. "Hang on." The chopper lurched again, the horizon tilting violently. Jenkins' stomach lurched as the jungle spiraled below, and then he saw him. Henson, or what was left of him. Standing at the edge of the clearing, his dog tags glinting in the rising sun. His face was wrong-stretched, hollow, his eyes two smoldering coals. His mouth opened in a soundless scream as the creatures swarmed around him, their limbs twitching in grotesque unison. Reyes followed Jenkins' gaze and recoiled. "No, no, no." The chopper banked again, and Henson vanished behind a curtain of trees. The radio erupted with static, then that voice guttural, wet, dripping with mockery. "You can't leave us behind." The crew chief tore off his headset, like it burned him. "What the hell is that?" Cole didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the lieutenant, who sat frozen, his face ashen. Jenkins turned back to the shrinking jungle. The red eyes still watched. And then, one by one, they winked out. Not retreating. Just waiting. The chopper leveled out, the gunfire fading behind them. The crew chief muttered prayers under his breath as the firebase disappeared into the green. Reyes slumped against the bulkhead, his voice hollow. "We're out. We're out." Jenkins closed his eyes. The radio hissed one last time, a whisper, almost gentle. "See you soon." Then silence. The jungle held its breath. The chopper carried them home. And somewhere, deep in the green, something laughed. The debriefing room smelled of stale coffee and gun oil. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a sterile glow over the metal table where Sergeant Cole, Jenkins, and Reyes sat stiff-backed in their chairs. The lieutenant leaned against the far wall, arms crossed, his face unreadable. Across from them, Major Dawson flipped through their reports with the disinterest of a man reading a grocery list. His pen tapped against the paper. "So let me get this straight," he said, voice flat. "You're claiming your man Private Henson was taken by some kind of jungle demon." Jenkins' fingers twitched against his knees. "Sir, we saw." "What you think you saw," Dawson interrupted. He tossed the report onto the table. "Stress, fatigue, VC playing mind games, it's all in here." "Yeah." Cole's jaw tightened. "With respect, sir, we have evidence. claw marks, the journal from the last unit, the radio transmissions, which no one else heard. Dawson leaned forward, his smile patronizing. Sergeant, I've read 100 reports, just like this. Men see things in the jungle. Shadows move. The mind fills in the blanks. Reyes let out a sharp breath. So Henson just, walked off into the trees. Dawson's gaze flicked to him. Missing in action, Corporal. Happens more than you'd think. Nat. The lieutenant finally spoke, his voice carefully neutral. Major, I was there. I saw the tracks, the way they moved. And yet, Dawson said, flipping open another file, your initial reports mentioned nothing about supernatural entities. Just VC activity and missing supplies. A beat of silence. The hum of the lights filled the room like static. Jenkins' stomach twisted. They were being boxed in. Cole's voice was low. We were ordered to omit certain details. Dawson's eyebrows rose. By whom? The lieutenant's cigarette had burned down to the filter, the ash clinging precariously. He didn't answer. Dawson sighed, closing the file. Look, I get it. War's hell. The jungle does things to a man's head. But if you keep pushing this story, command's going to start questioning your fitness for duty. He tapped the file meaningfully. Psychovols aren't kind, boys. You really want that on your records? Reyes' hands clenched into fists. So that's it? We just pretend that you did your jobs, Dawson finished. Yes. He stood, gathering the reports. Consider this matter closed. And gentlemen? His smile didn't reach his eyes. Get some rest. You look like hell. The door clicked shut behind him. The silence that followed was suffocating. Jenkins stared at the table. They're covering it up. The lieutenant lit another cigarette, his hand steady but his eyes hollow. Of course they are. Cole's voice was barely audible. Project Stalker. No one answered. Outside the window, the base buzzed with normalcy, soldiers laughing, engines roaring, the war grinding on, as if nothing had happened. But Jenkins couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on his back. Watching. Waiting. The radio on Dawson's desk crackled to life, spitting static into the quiet. Then a whisper, so faint it might have been imagination. You can't hide us forever. The lieutenant's cigarette froze halfway to his lips. Cole stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. We're not done here. Jenkins didn't move. Somewhere beyond the base, beyond the war, the jungle held its breath. And the red eyes blinked. The classified file burned in Sergeant Cole's hands. The archives beneath Da Nang Base were a maze of flickering fluorescence and stale air, the shelves lined with reports stamped eyes only in angry red ink. Cole had slipped in after hours, his forged clearance barely getting him past the lone MP at the door. Now, hunched in the dim glow of a desk lamp, he traced the words on the brittle page with a finger that refused to stay steady. Project Stalker. Phase 3 Field Report. Subjects exhibit heightened aggression post-exposure. No successful recoveries beyond 72 hours. Recommend immediate termination of all witnesses. The words blurred. Cole blinked, his throat tight. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. He snapped the file shut, heart hammering, but they faded down another aisle. He exhaled and flipped to the next page, a map of Vietnam with 12 fire bases circled in red. Ripcord was the southernmost. Beside each, a single word. Compromised. A rustle came from the stacks to his left. Cole froze. The air smelled suddenly of damp earth and something metallic, blood maybe, or rust. His hand drifted to the .45 at his hip. Nothing moved. He turned back to the file. The next page was a photograph, grainy and underexposed. Men in lab coats standing around a cage. The shape inside was indistinct, too tall, limbs too long, but the eyes caught the flash. Red, glowing. Cole's breath hitched. He knew that look, that hunger. The next page was a memo, dated 6 months before Ripcord. Despite containment failure, field testing will proceed as planned. Psychological deniability remains intact. The rustling came again, closer this time, a wet, clicking sound, like joints popping. Cole stood so fast his chair screeched. The fluorescence flickered, casting jagged shadows between the shelves. Nothing moved, but the smell was stronger now, jungle rot and something sweet beneath, like spoiled fruit. He stuffed the file into his pack, fingers brushing the journal he'd smuggled out of Ripcord. The torn page still nagged at him. What had Ellis known? What had the lieutenant not wanted them to see? A whisper cut through the silence, so faint he almost missed it. Sergeant sees too much. Cole spun. The aisle behind him was empty. The lights flickered again. When they steadied, the file cabinet beside him stood slightly ajar. He hadn't touched it. Hand on his sidearm, he edged forward and pulled the drawer open. Inside, a single folder lay atop a stack of requisition forms. The label read, D. Cole, M. Post-action review. His stomach dropped. He flipped it open. The first page was his own debriefing transcript from Dawson, every mention of the creatures blacked out. Beneath it, a newer memo. Subject exhibits dangerous fixation. Recommend reclassification from PTSD to Section 8. Disposal authorized. The lights went out. Total darkness. Cole's pulse roared in his ears. The whisper came again, this time from inside the cabinet. They're coming for you. No. He drew his pistol just as the emergency lights kicked on, bathing the room in dim red. The aisle was still empty, but the file cabinet now stood wide open, its contents strewn across the floor. And in the dust on the linoleum, fresh claw marks. Deep, deliberate, leading right to his boots. Cole backed away, sweat soaking his collar. The exit was 20 yards down the main corridor. He moved fast, not running, never running, but his breath came in sharp gasps. The whisper followed him, slithering from the shelves. You'll join the others soon. He hit the door at a near sprint, bursting into the humid night air. The MP at the checkpoint frowned. Everything all right, Sergeant? Cole forced his hand steady. Fine, just paperwork. The MP nodded, bored. Cole didn't look back as he walked away. But halfway across the compound, the feeling hit him, the weight of eyes on his back. He turned. Met. The archive building stood silent, its windows dark, except for one. Top floor, where 2 pinpricks of red light winked out as he watched. The jungle wasn't the only place they hid, and Project Stalker wasn't over. It was just getting started. The barracks at Da Nang were a far cry from Firebase Ripcord's solid walls, clean cots, the hum of electric lights instead of flickering lanterns. But Private Jenkins still woke screaming. His hands clawed at his throat, his fatigue soaked with sweat. The nightmare clung to him like a second skin. Henson's hollowed-out face, the red eyes in the trees, the way the jungle had laughed as the chopper pulled them away. Across the room, Reyes groaned, rolling onto his side. Jesus, Jenkins. Again? Jenkins wiped his face with a trembling hand. The clock on the wall read 0330. Sorry, didn't mean to wake you. Reyes sat up, rubbing his eyes. In the dim light, the shadows under them looked like bruises. You see them too, don't you? Jenkins didn't have to ask what he meant. The way Reyes' fingers twitched toward his rifle every time the wind rustled the palm trees outside told him everything. Yeah, Jenkins whispered. A silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken terror. Then, from outside a scrape, Jenkins froze. Reyes' head snapped toward the window. The sound came again soft, deliberate, like claws dragging along the barracks' corrugated metal siding. Reyes was on his feet in an instant, rifle in hand. You hear that? Bat. Jenkins nodded, his pulse hammering. The window was a black rectangle, the world beyond it swallowed by the night. The scraping stopped. Jenkins exhaled, then choked on his breath as two pinpricks of red light appeared just beyond the glass. Low, unblinking, watching. Reyes' breath hitched. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. Jenkins reached for his sidearm, his fingers numb. They're not supposed to be here. The eyes tilted slightly, as if amused. Then they vanished. Reyes lunged for the window, rifle raised, but the grounds outside were empty. No footprints, no disturbed earth, just the swaying palms and the distant glow of base security lights. Jenkins' hands wouldn't stop shaking. You saw them too, right? Reyes didn't answer at first. Then, quietly, yeah, I saw them. Mal. The barracks door creaked open, making both men jump. Sergeant Cole stood in the threshold, his face drawn. You two all right? Jenkins opened his mouth, but Reyes cut in. Just nightmares, Sarge. Nothing to worry about. Cole's gaze flicked between them, lingering on the window. He knew. They all knew. Get some sleep, he said finally. We've got debriefing at 0800. He left, but not before Jenkins saw the way his hand lingered near his holster. Reyes sank onto his cot, running a hand through his hair. We're losing it, man. Jenkins stared at the window. The glass was smudged 3 long streaks, like something had pressed against it. No claw marks. He swallowed hard. What if we're not? Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the trees. Somewhere in the dark, something laughed. The jungle air clung thick and heavy as Sergeant Cole gathered the squad in the dim glow of a kerosene lantern. The firebase was eerily silent, no distant chatter of radios, no hum of generators, just the oppressive weight of the trees pressing in. Jenkins shifted his weight, his fingers twitching near his rifle. Reyes stood beside him, his usual smirk absent, replaced by a hollow-eyed stare. The lieutenant was conspicuously missing again. Cole didn't waste time. We're not alone out here, he said, voice low. And it's not just VC. Henson's absence hung between them like a ghost. Reyes let out a slow breath. So what's the play, Sarge? Because command sure as hell isn't listening. Cole pulled the journal from his pack, its pages brittle under his fingers. We've got proof. Ellis saw them. The last squad saw them. And now we have. He flipped to the torn page, the frayed edges catching the light. Someone didn't want this read. Jenkins leaned in. You think the lieutenant knows more? I think he's scared, Cole said. And scared men hide things. A rustle came from the perimeter wire too deliberate to be the wind. The squad tensed, rifles swinging toward the sound. Nothing moved. Cole lowered his voice further. We're being watched, not just by the enemy. By them. Raya's grip tightened on his weapon. Then, why haven't they killed us yet? Jenkins thought of the eyes in the dark, the way they'd tracked the chopper, the way they'd laughed. They're playing with us. Cole nodded. And someone knows why. He glanced toward the command bunker, where a sliver of light bled through the lieutenant's closed door. We find out what's in that missing page. Tonight. The jungle exhaled around them, the leaves whispering secrets in a language none of them understood. Reyes swallowed hard. And if we don't like what we find... Cole's expression didn't change. Then we burn it all down. The lantern flickered. Somewhere beyond the wire, something shifted in the dark. Watching. Waiting. The squad didn't speak again. But they didn't need to. They were done being prey. The envelope sat on Cole's kitchen table like an accusation. 6 months had passed since Firebase Ripcord. 6 months of sleepless nights, of jumping at shadows, of waking in a cold sweat with the sound of laughter still ringing in his ears. The army had given him a medical discharge PTSD, they said. Stress-induced hallucinations. But the red eyes in his dreams weren't hallucinations. Cole picked up the envelope. No return address. No postmark. Just his name scrawled in jagged, uneven letters, as if written by a hand unaccustomed to holding a pen. Inside, a single sheet of paper. 3 words. They're not just in Vietnam. The handwriting was familiar. Too familiar. Henson's. DL. Cole's hands shook. He flipped the paper over, searching for more, but the back was blank. No signature. No explanation. Just those 5 words, screaming up at him from the page. The coffee in his mug had gone cold. Outside, the suburban street was quiet, lawns neatly trimmed, cars parked in driveways, the occasional dog barking in the distance. Normal. Safe. A lie. Because as Cole stared at the letter, the shadows in the corner of his kitchen twitched. Not a trick of the light. Not his exhausted mind playing games. A deliberate, unnatural movement, like something adjusting its weight. He reached for the pistol in the drawer beside him, his fingers brushing the grip. And the phone rang. The sudden noise made him jerk. He grabbed the receiver, his voice rough. Hello. No. Static. Then, a whisper, wet and guttural, the same voice that had haunted the radio at Ripcord. You can't hide from us, Sergeant. Cole dropped the phone. It clattered to the floor, the line still hissing. The shadows in the corner deepened. 2 pinpricks of red light blinked open. Low. Unblinking. Watching. The letter hadn't been a warning. It was a promise. The jungle hadn't stayed in Vietnam. It had followed them home. And the red eyes were everywhere. 10 years had passed since Firebase Ripcord. Jenkins sat on his back porch, the evening air thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. His hands, calloused from years of civilian work, cradled a beer that had long gone warm. The woods behind his house stretched into darkness, the trees swaying gently in the breeze. Normal. Quiet. A lie. He'd tried to forget. Told himself it was stress, fatigue, the war playing tricks on his mind. But the nightmares never stopped. Henson's hollowed-out face. The laughter in the static. The way the jungle had watched them leave. He took a swig of beer, the taste bitter on his tongue. The VA doctors called it PTSD. The Army called it case closed. Jenkins knew better. A twig snapped in the woods. His breath hitched. His fingers twitched toward the rifle leaning against the porch railing. Old habits died hard. Nothing moved. Just the wind. Just the trees. Then, a flicker, low in the underbrush. 2 pinpricks of crimson light, barely visible in the gathering dark. Jenkins' blood turned to ice. The eyes blinked, then vanished. His beer bottle slipped from his fingers, shattering on the porch steps. The sound was too loud in the stillness, echoing like gunfire. Inside, his wife called out, "Everything okay?" Jenkins didn't answer. His gaze stayed locked on the tree line, his pulse hammering in his throat. Nothing, just shadows. Just his mind playing tricks. Then the radio on the porch table crackled to life. It wasn't plugged in. Static hissed. Then a voice wet, guttural, familiar whispered through the speakers. "Missed you, Private." Jenkins' hands shook. The woods exhaled. And deep in the trees, dozens of red eyes blinked open, watching, waiting. The thing from Ripcord had never left. And it wasn't alone.